Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Pittsburgh Steelers bring back ex-Baltimore Ravens cornerback. The Pittsburgh Steelers are re-signing former Baltimore Ravens cornerback Anthony Averett to their practice squad. Averett was released by the Steelers following their game against the Buffalo Bills when he suffered a hamstring injury, but Averett now appears healthy and ready to return to Pittsburgh's practice squad. The Steelers signed Averett following a rookie minicamp tryout in May, and he impressed through the first 2 weeks of training camp, but struggled with his consistency down the stretch. Pittsburgh did not have many cornerbacks stick out, though, after his departure, and with a veteran needed for depth on the practice squad, the team turned back to Averett. The Ravens' fourth-round pick in the 2018 NFL Draft out of Alabama, Averett has been around the NFL over the last few seasons. After leaving the Ravens in 2021, he joined the Las Vegas Raiders, San Francisco 49ers, and later, the Detroit Lions. However, he failed to find a home after suffering multiple injuries. Averett can play both inside and outside, which gives the Steelers versatility, though he only played on the outside in training camp. Pittsburgh kept 4 outside cornerbacks on the initial 53-man roster, with both Corey Trice and Darius Rush stamping their spot on the roster. The Woodbury, New Jersey, native has played in 51 career games and ran a blazing 4.36 40-yard dash coming out of Alabama. He adds speed to the Steelers and security should injuries significantly impact the position in the long term. The 5 most vulnerable players on Steelers' 53-man roster. As we did with the Pittsburgh Steelers, everybody if they're smart uses initial to preface the 53-man roster. That's because the 53 players who survive cutdown day are almost never the same 53 who open the season. Teams always look over the waiver wire, hunt for straggling veteran free agents, and seek trades to fill out weak areas of the roster. In order to add a player, you need to subtract one, so rosters need to have an order of priority. Position, health, flexibility, and special teams contributions factor into that, but generally, you know who the vulnerable players are. Below is my list of the 5 players I believe are on the bottom of the Steelers' totem pole. Odds are at least 1 or 2 of these players won't be on the 53-man roster in Atlanta. The first of the Steelers' 2 sixth-round picks in April, Logan Lee is effectively the 8th defensive lineman. Though he is a defensive end by nature, they had him playing nose tackle in training camp. He frankly doesn't appear to be cut out for it, at least not at his current weight. That makes him, rather, an ideal developmental prospect, and they can do that from the practice squad. Either way, 8 linemen is too many, so if it's not Lee, then Isaiah Loudermilk may be vulnerable. The Steelers released Elliott back in July but brought him back in August. Now suddenly he is on the 53-man roster, the Steelers opting for him over Thomas Graham Jr. with the rash of injuries among slot cornerbacks. Elliott is their current next best option behind Beanie Bishop Jr., but because of that you should expect them to scour the waiver wire for other possibilities. See Ryan McCollum. Ryan McCollum is likely only on the 53-man roster because of Dylan Cook's injury. We don't even know for sure right now that the Steelers view him as the backup center. He may end up serving that role, or they could entrust it to Mason McCormick or Spencer Anderson. They have a couple weeks to practice at center before the regular season begins. And the Steelers should definitely look for veteran centers to replace McCollum, a practice squad mainstay. CB Darius Rush. Many people left Rush off their 53-man roster predictions, including myself. The Steelers are keeping him for now, but he may not stick, especially if they're looking for an experienced outside cornerback. Even more concerning for him is if they find another gunner, because that might be his job. The problem is, he struggled playing gunner during the preseason. Scotty Miller. While the Steelers only kept 5 wide receivers, they don't have to be married to the 5 they kept. Scotty Miller has worked with Arthur Smith before, but they can do better. Who knows, maybe they will actually trade for Brandon Aiyuk, after all. Or maybe they'll just replace him with Des Fitzpatrick at some point. The Pittsburgh Steelers are all in on a Brandon Aiyuk trade. The Pittsburgh Steelers are all in on Brandon Aiyuk. Weeks after the speculation about Aiyuk to Pittsburgh reignited after months of the Steelers calling about him, there is still nothing done. San Francisco and Pittsburgh have a deal in place, and the Steelers have agreed to a contract with Aiyuk already. Yet, Aiyuk has not signed a deal with the 49ers and did not show up to practice on Wednesday. 49ers general manager John Lynch seemed fed up, and so did head coach Kyle Shanahan, who stated that Aiyuk was fully cleared from a back injury that he had complained about during training camp. As Lynch said, "The time to practice and play is now. At some point you got to play," Lynch said. Aiyuk does not seem intent on doing that. Dug into his leverage, Aiyuk does not seem to mind being fined or suspended. He is willing to miss games, and when the 49ers tried to call his bluff, Aiyuk did not waver from his position. As for the Steelers, they have a need at wide receiver, which is why they have been in hot pursuit of another top wideout. Yet, it seems like Aiyuk is someone that general manager Omar Khan had circled from the jump. The Steelers do not typically make huge trades for wide receivers, but assistant general manager Andy Weidl has a history of making some big-time deals from his time with the Philadelphia Eagles and Baltimore Ravens. In each case, the team Weidl was employed by traded a day 2 pick or even a first-round pick to acquire a star receiver. A.J. Brown and Onchuen Bolden would end up being key cruxes of those teams, too, and they worked out swimmingly for both groups. Meanwhile, at every opportunity to land an upgrade since trading Deontay Johnson, the Steelers have passed. They tried to sign now New York Jets wide receiver Mike Williams, who would fit the moniker of an uber-talented wide receiver to pair with Pickens. When Tim Patrick and Noah Brown presented themselves as options, the Steelers instead passed on them, still keeping their eye on Aiyuk. Khan and the Steelers either want a clear upgrade or they will add marginal pieces to the group. They did similar things all offseason by signing Van Jefferson, Scotty Miller, and drafting Roman Wilson. The targets out on the market could provide gunner experience, but they will not provide the receiver upside that those two will. So, instead, the Steelers are in pursuit of Aiyuk, hoping that the 49ers will call them back and tell them they have agreed to the deal. It has been 2.5 weeks since the Steelers and 49ers have that deal in place. For now, Khan seems content with riding out what they have in the room if they cannot acquire Aiyuk. But with the events that occurred on Wednesday, an Aiyuk trade has never appeared likelier. The 49ers could wallow in stubbornness along with Aiyuk and let this play out into the season. There is nothing stopping each side from doing that, and the 49ers could fine and suspend Aiyuk moving forward rather than caving in and deciding to trade him. However, the Steelers have an inkling they will land him. It's a risky proposition. If Aiyuk stays, the Steelers will have one of the worst wide receiver core in the league. However, patience and the feel of the league is how Khan has gained his edge throughout the entirety of his general manager tenure. He is banking on those connections on the agency side and his feel of the situation to lead him to a trade for a superstar wide receiver in Aiyuk. And you fan? What do you think of the situation of Brandon Aiyuk? Leave your opinion in the comments.